Hi, y'all. Welcome back to your favorite podcast for all things sexual health, Time Out with Sex Ed. It's me, Shar, here with
Johana,
James,
and Connie.
And today we're going to evaluate modern sex education.
in other words, did whatever form of sex ed that you have actually help you?
Now let's start off at the origins of sex ed. For those of you who can't remember what this was, it was around 5th grade and most schools had the school nurse come in and give a presentation.
I know that in my school, they split up the boys and the girls and talked to each group about what to expect during puberty.
So basically, the girls, you're going to get something called a period soon, and your body part/body hair will start growing. Love that. 5th grade me was honestly so stressed out after hearing that.
Oh my gosh, same.
Okay, so now let's move on to sex ed in middle school and high school.
Was sex ed even a thing in high school?
Honestly, I don't think so. I remember in middle school when they would just show us the scary pictures of all the different types of STDs.
Me too. It made me never want to have sex.
And then in high school, I'm pretty sure one of our football coaches was our health teacher, and it was such a blow-off class.
That's not even very comforting to hear, since this is around the time when the majority of people are already sexually active in some way.
Now sex ed in college, wow, it just gets worse.
Haha, from what I've seen, sexual health awareness in college is almost non-existent. I mean, most people still heavily rely on the pull-out method as their primary source of birth control. Even Plan B is becoming another primary source of birth control, which should definitely not be the case, hence the name, Plan B.
On top of that, the hookup culture is all over the place, especially with the help of apps such as Tinder. Some people have a new sexual partner like almost every week, which makes the thought of the spread of STDs truly terrifying.
So between the four of us, do you think that sex ed was any help?
It was to some extent. I did learn about STDs and some methods of safe sex.
I mean, I thought it was somewhat helpful too, since I wasn't too comfortable talking to my parents about this subject and vice versa.
I agree.
Furthermore, we surveyed about 20 college-age students in order to have a more accurate sample size.
The results are as follows.
So out of the people who answered our survey, 61.5% were female and 38.5% were male.
Of those people, 85% have taken a sex ed course before college and 15% didn't.
And of the people who took the course, 30% thought it was very effective, taught the basics, and went into details about other aspects of sex and relationships. 55% thought it was relatively effective, teaching only the basics, and 15% believed it was not effective at all.
Only 10% of people applied what they were taught in their sex ed curriculum to their everyday lifestyle almost on a daily basis. 75% applied what was learned every so often, such as when they engaged in sexual activity, and 15% did not apply these lessons to their everyday life.
When asked if contraceptives were taught in the course, 35% of those who said yes felt confident about their knowledge of them. Another 55% that said yes, they didn't quite grasp the information on all different types because it was only a brief lesson. The last 10% were not even taught about contraceptives.
When asked if sex ed course had pressured them to practice abstinence, 35% said yes and 65% said no.
That being said, 55% said their teachers used accurate anatomical vocabulary such as vagina and penis and were confident in doing so. 40% said yes, but it was rare since their teachers were not confident using the terminology. 5% said no.
80% answered yes to the question, the sex education course taught me methods of safe sex, and 20% answered no.
For the question of were you more sexually active before or after your sexual education course, 5% answered with being more sexually active, 45% answered with being more sexually active after, and 50% answered with being sexually active the same amount, regardless of the sexual education course.
20% had spoken with their parents about sexual education prior to taking the course, and the parents were comfortable talking to them about it. 5% did the same, but the conversation was uncomfortable for both parties. 40% did not and were glad that they had it, and 35% did not but wish they had.
On the other hand, 25% had spoken to their parents about sexual education after taking the course, and both parties were comfortable on the topic. 35% did not and were glad that they didn't. 40% did, but wished that they had spoken about it.
I'm not too surprised about the results because everything was 50-50 almost. However, I am concerned about how most people were not taught at all about the contraceptive methods properly.
I feel like the teachers definitely need to become more confident with the terminology and when teaching the curriculum to make sure that the students grasp the concepts without becoming too overwhelmed or shy in the process.
Now, to end this week's podcast, we will go over some tips and tricks on how to approach your kids about sex. First of all, don't try to use the scare tactic approach by explaining STDs in detail. This might honestly scar them and prevent them from exploring their sexual selves. Secondly, be sure to be kind and emphasize how important it is for them to embrace their sexuality. Also, remember to make it a fun and non-intimidating talk. If you don't feel comfortable talking about this or feel like it would be better coming from someone else that the kid is close to, have them do it instead.
In summation, we just have some quick sexual health reminders for those of you whose sex ed course may have been severely lacking. Remember to always use a condom. They protect against pregnancy when used properly, and protect against STDs. If you have any free time, feel free to Google some birth control methods and possibly find the best method for yourself. Also remember to get tested for STDs frequently and regularly. You are basically sleeping with everyone that your partner has ever slept with.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast of Time Out with Sex Ed.
Have a great week. Be sure to tune in for our next one.